What's up, YouTube? John here. Thank you for joining Blue Carbon Reefing. Just wanted to start today by explaining how to properly set up a quarantine tank. It's really important when you have a quarantine tank to do the right things so you can make sure that the fish is healthy, has no diseases that you're going to carry into your main tank, and of course to make sure you're properly observing the fish, you're treating it properly with medication. I'm going to post some links in the description below. I'm going to give a shout out to Humblefish on Reef to Reef. He is definitely Dr. Fish. If you go through and you check the links in the description, there will be numerous links on how to properly do this. I'm going to show you my version of this, which I have definitely taken a page from his book, and all the years he has been doing research into ick and marine velvet and all the fish diseases that obviously are out there. So with his expertise, obviously we can always make sure we have a successful reef tank. So I have personally an 1100 gallon system. The main display is 400 gallons, which is upstairs, and then I have another 700 gallons worth of different tanks and things downstairs, which I have a video coming up that I will show you all of that. Right now, to give you the background, I have not properly quarantined and learned the hard way, and I had a marine velvet outbreak and lost all of my fish but two. Had quite a number of fish in obviously the main system. I was going to say at least 30 fish or more that I lost very quickly within the course of maybe 2 to 3 months. So definitely been doing a lot of research on how to properly quarantine, which is where I've gotten everything set up now. You saw my preview in a previous video of the 3 different quarantines. Right now I'm just going to kind of break it down of what I do for the quarantine, and I'm specifically going to look at the 75 gallon here in front of us. So when you set up a quarantine, you don't always have the opportunity to have something that already has beneficial bacteria on it. You need the beneficial bacteria to help keep ammonia in check. So when you feed the fish, they produce waste. That waste is ammonia, and ammonia, of course, needs to be broken down because ammonia is toxic to the fish. So you need that beneficial bacteria in order to break down the ammonia, turn it into nitrite, and then nitrate, which is the whole nitrogen cycle. So I'm not going to go deep into that, but just kind of want to explain what I have in here and why, and what's the whole logic behind it. So this 75 gallon tank, of course, I have important couple things. I have a heater. Typically, it depends on where you're at, but normally it's recommended 3 to 5 watts per gallon. I've watched a lot of things and done a lot of research, but really you just got to make sure that you can keep a stable temperature. So having a properly sized heater obviously is important. If your temperature is fluctuating in your quarantine, you're going to stress the fish out. So I have these sponge filters. The sponge filters, of course, is something that shoots a lot of air bubbles out. It aerates the tank, keeps a lot of oxygen in the tank, which is good for the fish, especially when you're adding medications to the water. A lot of the medications like Pro and some of those things obviously take the oxygen out of the water, so it's really important that you heavily aerate the water, especially in a quarantine. I have some water flow as well. I typically like to do the kind of your typical hang on back filters where you will have, these are just the Emperor 400 is what this one is, which is I believe marine land. So I mainly do this. I can put extra sponges in here, but with the sponge filters here, I don't have a ton of fish in here. I only have 4 little fish, I would say, because the clown tang is less than 2 inches. I have a 6-line wrasse now. I have a yellow tang, which is the biggest fish of the one, of maybe I'm going to say less than 3 inches himself, and then the coral beauty angelfish. So in the 75 gallon, that is not a huge bio load. Obviously I feed quite a bit. I want my fish nice and happy and healthy and fat in order to introduce them into the main tank. I also think that fish that are full and well fed are less likely to show aggression and fight each other and cause more stress. So I did just feed. There's some, I don't even know the name of the food, but it's like a spirulina that kind of is mixed with some brine shrimp. So it's kind of a cool little, it's pretty sure it's a curry. So I can show you that if you're curious. Now, as far as what's in the tank, you typically don't want to have any substrate, sand, live rock, anything that you have in the tank like that could possibly absorb your copper medication. Now, me personally, there's two different ways that you can kind of quarantine. One is to just observe the fish, feed them, look for signs, parasites, things that the fish are doing, flashing, things like that. And then if you see those activities, you would typically treat medication-wise then. Me, I work full-time, so I'm not staring in front of this tank all day long. I maybe get a good hour a day at most to stare at the tank and look for signs of, parasites or anything that the fish are doing that would make it look like they're not doing well or sick or need to be treated. So I prophylactically treat. So right now, as you can see, I have added copper. Typically, I will slowly ramp up the copper. 3 or 4 days is probably good. I took well over a week. So started adding the copper and slowly, day by day, add a little bit more. And obviously, I use the Mardell Copper Safe. It's a chelated copper. Don't have a whole lot of experience with it, but I have used cupramine, and I think this actually is a little bit easier. You also have to have the correct test kit, which API is the correct test kit to be able to properly test the chelated copper and make sure that your levels are good. It's definitely very, very important that you keep the fish at a therapeutic level, which is normally 1.5 to 2 parts per million. So when you look at the kit and you read the label on the back, it kind of gives you instructions, but I will tell you that you definitely need to test, because the instructions on the back would lead to probably a higher than 2.0 level based on what I'm seeing right now. I am currently below 2.0. I'm probably above 1.5, but definitely below 2.0 when I tested. It's also very important for that 30-day period that you're typically going to treat with copper that you maintain that therapeutic level, which means that you're frequently testing. Obviously, copper can be absorbed by certain things. I don't have too much in the tank, which is why you don't want to put live rock or sand into the quarantine tank, because those things can possibly absorb the copper, which would drop it below the therapeutic levels, and then it's very possible that it was treated for nothing with copper and stressing the fish out, because if it's not at therapeutic levels, it may not be guaranteed to kill ick or whatever parasite you're trying to eradicate. So other than the sponge filters and the air and the heater, I do have a couple of, these are actually 3-inch PVC pipes. So something simple you can get, I think it's like a couple dollars at Home Depot. You can buy those very simply. I typically just rinse everything off, clean it real good before I put it in the tank. Even from the store, it's collecting dust or dirt. You never know whose hands were dirty or anything. So typically I'll rinse everything I can. I don't use soaps or anything like that. I just am rinsing things with, regular water, RO water, whatever I can for the most part. So as far as a light, this is just kind of what I had at the moment. So I had over my frag tank this kind of 4-foot blue light as an actinic, just adding on the frag tank. So right now I'm just using it as part of the quarantine to have a full 4-foot light over the tank. I only had one little light. You don't really have to light the tank too much. A lot of people don't even light their quarantine tanks. Personally, I have to, because the time that I'm observing the fish is typically at night. I do have in this area some overhead lights. It's a basement though, it's not very bright, so I typically like to have some kind of light on there, which also, having some kind of light, personally I like to have a regular cycle. They're all on a timer that comes on about 6 hours a day, so not a tremendous amount of time. There'll be more amount of time with the reef tank, but it's something so they can kind of have a day and night cycle. Fish do like to, be active during the day and have a place to sleep at night, so they're not constantly swimming around. You don't want to, light the tank 24 hours a day. That would be really bad. So other than that, I do have a Seachem, I believe on Amazon it's like $5 or $6. This is an ammonia reader. Typically you want to make sure that it looks exactly at 0.0, or it looks like it says less than 0.02 parts per million ammonia. So this is one of the things that will work with treating with copper. From my understanding, if you treat with copper, your like API or some of those other test kits can read false positives for ammonia, which would cause you to treat. Another thing you want to make sure that you do is you do not use prime. Some people, if they know what prime is, I will show you here in 1 second. So this is prime. Prime is by Seachem. It's a water conditioner. Typically people who maybe use tap water will put this into their water to take out chloramines. You know, it also detoxifies ammonia, nitrate, nitrite. So typically you can add this to the water, especially if you have to, in an emergency, treat your fish. Or set up a quarantine tank and you don't have that beneficial bacteria started. This is a good thing that you can do, but you do not want to put this in your tank while you have copper in the tank. It will make the copper, when my understanding, up to 10 times, I don't know if that's an exact number, but up to 10 times more potent, which can really just kill all your fish. So if you are treating with copper, do not use prime at the same time. If you have no other medications in the water and you're starting to get a spike in ammonia, definitely use the prime and read the directions, and it will very quickly remove that toxic ammonia, which can then be filtered out. That's definitely something to keep an eye out for. So typically when I quarantine, you know, like there's a minimum amount of time, but you definitely want to treat copper in the water at a therapeutic level for a full 30 days. That will cover the majority of any kind of strains of ick, parasites, marine velvet. There are some strains of ick that can go longer than 30 days. Up to 72 days is the longest that a strand of ick has been kind of identified. So it's really important, if you can quarantine longer than 30 days, basically you want to treat with copper for 30 days. That's going to eliminate maybe 99% of any kind of strains or parasites that you can treat for, external parasites. And then you want to observe for, you know, up to another 30 days, you know, afterwards. Some people, you know, say a couple weeks, but another thing that you're going to treat with would be PraziPro. So the copper is going to treat anything external. PraziPro is going to work on flukes, any kind of worms or things like that may be internal. So normally you do 2 different rounds of PraziPro. I'll get that as well so I can kind of show you what that looks like. So this is PraziPro, and again, a lot of different places will sell it. Your bulk reef supply, you can get it on Amazon. You know, I always kind of check around and see who's got the best price. I also obviously can get that from the local fish store. So it's pretty much sold everywhere. It has a number of uses. So typically what you're going to want to do is read the directions, make sure you're putting the correct amount into the water. It typically is going to do most of the work within the first 72 hours. Typically what you're going to do is do 1 round of treatment, put it in there for a full week, do a 25% water change. At that point, most of the medication itself is going to kind of dissipate, and then you're going to do a second round after you do that 25% water change again for about another week. And then that whole time, obviously, as long as you want to keep your fish in quarantine, keep monitoring them, you're going to be looking for signs of flashing or anything that would make it look like they still have something going wrong with them. And if they do, obviously you're going to take the correct course of action to either treat again or whatever you need to do. So typically at this point, since I am unable to put any fish into my tank for at least another month, the main system has been going fallow now. You want to go fallow. If you ever have any kind of parasites in your main display, you have to take every single fish out of the tank, and fallow is going fishless. Typically it's recommended for 76 days. I set a calendar reminder for 77 days just to make sure, you know, whatever case, if I didn't start the timer at the right time, or you know, to that point, just to be safe. At that point, what does it matter whether it's 76 days, 80 days? You just want to make sure that before you re-enter your fish back into the main system, there's no possible chance that you have anything still in your water that, you know, has been slowly taking its time to release. So I'm not going to go into the life cycle of ick. When you go through and you read Humble Fish's articles that I've gone through myself numerous times on Reef to Reef, you'll be able to kind of get a better idea. But basically, there's different stages of the life cycle, and if you kind of understand the parasite, you will understand how to eradicate the parasite. There is other methods of quarantining. There is something called tank transfer method. In this case, I do not do that. A couple of reasons why I don't do it. One, it takes time. You have to have multiple tanks. You have to break down every single tank, clean it properly, and then set up the new tank and make sure that you're not reusing anything from the previous one, and everything properly dries out for at least 3 days before you go again. So again, as far as time is concerned, this is the best way for me to set up a quarantine, is to get the fish in there, treat automatically, because I can't necessarily be watching them 24/7 to see signs, and just make sure I'm doing it the right way. A couple of things I want to add that aren't a necessity, but as far as health of the fish, or just making the stress a little bit lower, what I do like to do. So I do like to paint the tanks. The bottom, the 3 sides obviously just have the front of the tank open. I use a Rust-Oleum oil-based paint. You can paint it on. I use a roller. Some people I've seen it would spray paint, whatever you prefer. But the oil-based paint will definitely not scrape off the glass very easy. If you use a latex, which I have before, that will peel off very easy. So it will chip quickly, or you can literally just peel the whole thing off once it dries. So you definitely want to use an oil-based paint. I paint it black. A couple reasons. I like the look of black. 2, it kind of reduces the reflections. Sometimes I do see fish that will, see their own reflection and get aggressive because of that reason. Also, as far as lids, you can use glass lids, screen tops, anything, but I definitely recommend having a lid. Most small fish, any fish can jump, but the whole reason behind the lid, 2 things. For me, it helps reduce the evaporation, which will keep the salinity straight, unless I have to top off the tank with fresh water. And 2, obviously very important, keeping the fish from jumping. You do not want to have your fish that you're spending money on medicating, trying to get successfully eating proper, and then all of a sudden they jump out of the tank because they're spooked one night. So that's definitely, something that I do. I didn't mention a minute ago, but the extra flow and the hang-on back filter, one of the benefits to that is, when you're ready to remove medication, or if you ever need to add carbon, things to help clean up the water, you can add extra filters to help clean the water. And also that's where I would put my medication. It does provide extra water flow and aeration to the water. So it's probably overkill again, but just making sure that I have multiple different ways to keep the water clean. So again, I will leave a few links down in the description. This is how you should properly set up a quarantine. Any comments, questions, if you see something that I don't I'm currently doing or didn't mention, feel free to leave a comment below. If you like the video, you like how everything is going, definitely give the video a like, and feel free to subscribe. There will definitely be quite a bit more videos coming soon. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you watched this whole entire video, I am impressed. Leave a comment below and tell me that you watched the whole thing, because it's probably going to end up being well over 20 minutes in the end, even after I kind of edit a couple things out. So definitely there will be more videos to come. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. If you like this video, you like how I have things set up, definitely give me the thumbs up. And if there's anything that you see that maybe I should do differently, or you have a question about that what I'm doing specifically, feel free to leave a comment as well. I will definitely answer all the comments that they're coming in. Subscribe. I will definitely be bringing out some more videos. Thank you for staying tuned, and hope to see you again.